All right, so let's talk about painting clouds with watercolor. I tend to think of clouds as bad circles. So if we think about painting a circle, a cloud is ultimately really just kind of multiple bad circles that are generally flat on the bottom, but the basic shape is there. So from a practice standpoint, the goal with making a cloud is, generally speaking, the top is going to be more defined, the bottom is going to be less defined. The top is going to be where the sun is hitting, because most of the time it's above the clouds, and the bottom is going to be in shadow. So if the sun is coming from this direction, it's going to be light up here, it's going to be more shadowed down here. Painting clouds doesn't have to be complex. Painting skies doesn't have to be complex. What I tend to do is I think of the cloud as whatever the background color is, in this case white, oftentimes yellow ochre. And so you can see I'm just painting in with largely clear water there on my circle. Taking the blue of my sky, which for me is usually cobalt blue, and I'm painting around the circle. And as long as I don't touch that water, I'm going to get a crisp edge. Where I touch the water, it's going to soften it because the water is going to pull some of that pigment in. But since clouds are surrounded by sky on all sides, we can paint around them on all sides. And so that covers our sky, that covers soft and hard edges. If we need to firm some of those up, we can take some paper towel and dry bits of those, and that's going to make it so that the paint's not going to move so much. And then the last piece is to take a more neutral color, some sort of gray or purple, but not very vibrant, and that's going to be our shadow. And so we'll add that down here. That's probably too much water, and I can tell because it's dripping down a lot, and it's also going to be quite light. A little less water. And so that's the basic idea with painting a cloud. We can do that in more complex shapes, but these are all still just kind of balls. So we got our clear water there. Take our sky. Our sky goes up and around the cloud. Sides. Pull out some highlights there. And let's make our shadow color a little bit more vibrant, just so it's a little easier to see. But that's the basic idea for a cloud. Cool. So when painting a landscape, just put a horizon in there. The same basic idea is going to apply, but we're putting in perspective, right? So if this is the horizon, clouds are going to flow out from there. So you're going to have long, thin clouds where you can't see much of them there, whereas up here we're going to see much bigger clouds. Something like that. But these follow the same principles that we showed up here. So when painting a more complex scene like a sky, we're going to go in with our clear water. Right? Clear water, which in this case has a little bit of crimson in it from my purple. We're going to take our sky blue. Generally speaking, the sky is going to be bluer at the top and a little lighter as you get towards the horizon. And this is all sort of daylight. You know, I'm not messing around with twilights or sunsets or sunrises or anything like that. So we do a kind of bad job painting around these, which makes them feel more painterly. Right? And again, where our sky has touched those clouds, it's going to start seeping in. We're going to get a mixture of soft and hard edges. If we want to soften more up, we can go in with a damp brush. If we want to create more hard edges, we can do that. We can also, you can use the paper towel to just sort of create the hint of clouds near clouds. So we're getting a nice hard edge there, soft edge there, kind of a mixture there. Then we go in with a dullish purple, which I'm using the same blue, a bit of crimson, a bit of brown to knock that back. And again, if our sky's coming down from this direction, our clouds are going to be on the bottom left. And basically anywhere there's a cloud that we've put in, we're going to add a bottom to our cloud. And you can do more, but often find less is more with skies. And then down here in the horizon, these are long, low clouds. There's just not a lot of space, so keep them pretty simple. Take that. Just a bit of green. Now we've got some brown. We'll vary that color up a little bit, just taking stuff from our palette that's already made. Bit of spatter, not gonna hurt it, since we're just messing around with this anyway. And then the other thing I sometimes will do is, if I think that the cloud shadows are just a little too strong, I might go in and soften those up with a damp brush, because that's a lot of contrast that's going to be drawn right there. So sometimes softening those up can just reduce some of that contrast. You're not going to have to do it down here, because that's going to mix with the blue of the sky that's already there. But sometimes the shadow color versus the white of the clouds. And so this is what's in my mind, plus the perspective piece, when I would go in to paint an actual sky. But I'm rarely going to do more than maybe just hint at where I want a cloud. And the last piece of advice that I would suggest is don't mess with it too much. Get in and get out with the skies, because the more you fiddle with them, the less fresh they feel. So I've put my wet down. Let me see if flashlight will help, if you can kind of see that better. You can see there's literally a pool of water right there that's waiting on this paper for me, and that's fine. Cobalt. Bad job painting around. And when I say bad job, I mean I'm not really following the lines, because here the lines are barely even in existence. So we're just doing a bad job making a circle, basically, right? Same basic principle as this, and this. It's just we're trying not to draw a perfect circle. And all of these kind of imperfection marks are not necessarily a bad thing. They could just be the hints of clouds. So dry paper towel, soften, and just create some kind of random shapes. And I don't know if you can tell, but as I'm doing this, I'm just slightly varying it. So I'm getting different parts that are wet or dry, crinkled or not crinkled, and they create variation in the texture. with the shadow color. Need a bit more. And we'll give ourselves some long clouds in the distance. And you might think, okay, well, there's shadow there, but there's no whites to the clouds. And that's okay, because typically in the distance, there isn't a lot of contrast. We don't see a lot of contrast, but if we needed to, we could always go in with a line of paper towel and lift out. I'm just tapping the line there. And again, if it's partially wet, partially dry, that's fine. It's going to create variation. And I don't want a white spot too much down there on the bottom. And my cloud bottoms here are probably a bit too red, but that's okay. This is just for a demonstration. These are too strong a contrast. So again, I'm just softening the top right corner of those. And I didn't do a good job painting a solid shape here, and that's intentional because those are going to just kind of read as little bits of cloud in there. What I have a tendency of doing, and what I would strongly suggest not doing, is what I'm about to show you, is I start to see that there's too much wet here and it's, you know, creating cauliflowers with the blue, and so I'll not wait because I'm impatient. I'll not wait for the blue to dry, and I'll go in with another coat of this, and what that tends to make happen is it tends to make the sky look a little overworked. You can see how fresh this looks, and this will end up looking, I think, just kind of more blotchy. But you can go back in. If you're going to do that, I would recommend waiting until the thing is fully dry. Even if it creates cauliflowers, that's okay. You can deal with those later. But I'm not doing that, just to demonstrate what not to do, I guess. So do our best not to create more blooms, more cauliflowers here that we don't want. I mean, there's nothing that stops you from just splattering some water on there and intentionally creating cauliflowers if that's the style you want to go with. But there's a quick tutorial. Keep the circle in mind. Even if it's flat, clouds tend to have more defined tops and less defined bottoms. Typically, if you're going to define the bottom, make sure that it's a nice dull color, you know, across the bottom, and don't overwork them because it doesn't do you any good. That's it. Thanks.